Welcome to the first episode of Brand Intentionally with Friends. If you don't know me yet, my name is Garett Southerton. I'm an intentional branding strategist and designer, and I've been a creative professional for over 18 years now. This podcast is meant to help you think differently about running a business, cultivating communities and change, and even leveling up your personal life by being more intentional. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and to kick things off, I wanted to do a very special episode because I feel like we don't talk enough about mental health as creators and business owners. So I collaborated with a special friend who, like me, has struggled a lot mentally. So sit back, dig deep, and get ready for this episode of Brand Intentionally with Friends. I'm so happy to introduce you to my first guest, someone with 13 years sales and marketing experience. She hails all the way from Queensland, Australia. She runs the fiery Red Punk Social. She is Chrissy Ingram.
Hey Garett, thanks so much for having me on here today. As you know, mental health awareness is one topic that's really close to my heart for many reasons. Obviously, as you've shared, I've had my own struggles this year with it, and even just last year with facing grief unexpectedly, which has sort of triggered further, along into sort of rolled into this year, and it's had an impact and it's had an effect. So yeah, I think it's really great that we're able to come together and share something and share a space where we can really sort of hone down and talk about mental health openly and as small business owners, and do it in a space where there doesn't need to be shame surrounding it.
No,
So
of course not.
thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for pushing me to do this, because it's kind of been one of those things where you teeter, you want to do it, but you kind of need that support to do it, right? You can't just kind of do it by yourself, because then everybody's just like, okay, well, it's just another hot topic somebody wants to talk about for, clicks and likes, rather than actually talking about it and talking about issues. And I feel like that's totally something that is in our society. Everybody wants to talk about mental health until somebody wants to talk about mental health. And then it's like, no, never mind. Why don't you just talk to a therapist and you're kind of good, right?
Yeah, it's talk about it to tick a box kind of thing, but don't actually discuss, your own lived experience or things like that.
It just becomes the hot topic of the month, kind of everybody was on the meta verified for a while, and oh, well, it may, so now let's talk about that and only that, and kind of not really care, but I'll give you my top 5 tips to prevent mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really just wanted to kind of kick it off with, over the last few months, how it's affected your business. How are you able to run your business?
Well, I'm happy to share and be really open about it. I actually closed my books to look after my mental health. One half of my business is I'm a social media manager, and the other half is taking one-to-one clients for marketing consultation or coaching on how to use Instagram for their business. But I decided to close the social media management side of it down, because if you're a small business owner and you run your own social media, you know what's involved, and if you know what you're doing properly, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of energy. Because it is a social space, you need to turn up into that space and be social for your business. And if you've got other pressures going on in the background, and you don't have that energy to give out, it makes it that much harder. So I decided to close that side down and set myself a little challenge of posting only twice a week, and trying to keep a consistency in posting. That has been my biggest challenge, because obviously with recent diagnosis, I just found out that I'm ADHD. So that was triggered from the grief. So sudden passing of my father last year.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being a support in the background and the DMs through.
Of course.
Over this
It's a hard thing. And I think that sometimes people just expect us to oh, well, okay, you'll be good in a month or two, and you'll get over it. And it's like, no, you don't just get over stuff. It sounds nice, but it doesn't work that way realistically. And like you said, it triggers a lot of other things.
Yeah.
My first, the dog that was mine, she was my dog. I got her. I had her, I raised her, and she suddenly passed, and it happened right before COVID started. And
wow.
Kind of that mixed with COVID, the whole world's on lockdown. You can't do anything. It kind of I went ghost for 2 years off of social media completely. I was out of social media. My business ran on autopilot, whatever. but I was just out of it, you know. I completely
Yeah.
understand you know what I mean? People just
Yeah.
don't understand how bad certain griefs and certain things that happen to us trigger everything else. I was so anxious and I didn't want to post because okay, then people are going to expect me to keep it up. People are going to expect me to
Yeah.
keep going with it and keep helping them. And I don't want to take on new clients. You know, I had my stuff figured out. I didn't want to
Yeah.
grow. I just wanted to relax. I mean, I think kind of happened at the best timing with COVID because of that reasoning, you know?
Yeah.
And something I really love that you said though was that you put the pause purposely on your business so you
Mhm.
can focus on yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that's amazing because so many times people are like, you know, oh, just keep going, push yourself. You'll make it through. And I think that like, yeah, then you're going to half-ass your client's work and then you're only going to hurt yourself more just because you're trying to get a few more bucks.
That's it. Yeah, sometimes there's more important things in life than your money, and your health and your mental health is definitely one of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm sorry about your dog. That would I can't even. My dog's helped me through so much the last year, so I
Yeah.
really can understand what that level of grief would be like. And I think it doesn't matter where the grief comes from. It's impactful, like whether it's end of a marriage or a job or redundancy, or
Mm-hmm.
it can have a real impact on your life. So I think I'm really lucky that I have such a fantastic support network around me. I
That's
think
so essential.
Oh, it's so essential because there's been times in my life where I've not. And also, I was thinking, I did have this thought go through my head not long after my dad passed was like, what if I was working in corporate still and I wasn't a business owner? Like, the fact that I could just pack up and go to New Zealand for 2 months and spend it with my mum and my brother,
Mm-hmm.
just do what I needed to do, like that never would have happened in a 9 to 5.
No, never. You'd have to push through it.
Yeah, here's your 3 days of grief, allowance. See you back next week, Wednesday. And it's like, I would have had to have quit my job. Like,
Yeah,
if I
no,
had been in
totally.
corporate, there's no way I would have done it. So the fact that you're a entrepreneur or business owner, you have much more flexibility in your life to look after your mental health and actually go, okay, I need to take a breath and I need to take a step back. And what can I do and what can I shift in my business to still allow for income, but also be looking after myself? Now, obviously social media management's a big, big part of my income. So
Mm-hmm.
by not having that right now, I'm going through this on little to no income. And I've been very lucky that I've had a partner who's been supportive every step of the way through my diagnosis. And
Mm-hmm.
we've tackled it as a team. But to not have those great levels of support around you through your friends, like I'm lucky. I've got a great partner. I've got an amazing online community that
Yeah.
and friends like all across the world who are doing similar stuff to what I'm doing, and we lean on each other and we help each other out. And I think it's really important to have that online digital community with people from different perspectives, different places in the world who, you're going through similar stuff, and you can actually just chill and talk about it. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I so agree. And I think that's something that we really connect on, right? Is really that community aspect of it. Because, like you said, like, you know, you could do that with little known income. My philosophy is, you know, the money comes and goes, right? You make more, you're going to spend more, you're going to save more. It's going to come and go as you need it, as it's meant to be, right? But
yeah,
when you build that community that's like actually there and they understand you and they can support you, even when you're going through those tough times, they see that, they respect that, they relate to that. That's
yeah,
huge. So
yeah,
huge when people relate to you and you know, they see you like, "Oh, well, Chrissy went through that and she's real and now that she's back, that's awesome. Maybe she could help me because I'm going through that same thing right
mm,
now. I'm
yeah.
feeling that way about my own social media. Maybe Chrissy's the one who can help me put those pieces together." I think that's so awesome.
So it's funny you say that. I actually had someone reach out to me this week in my audience out of the blue, and their father's passing. So that to know that I've got someone in my audience that I sort of support through their content and stuff, that they could actually come to me and just
Mhm.
share with me. I felt really honored. I was like,
That's so
it's
special.
awesome that I have that like connection. I know that through the grief I've made some really, really deep connections with people all over the world via the DMs. And yeah, it's pretty
It's so much
special.
bigger. It's so much bigger than
Yeah,
like what you see a business as and like what
yeah,
an actual small business is. Like it's just so
yeah,
special.
yeah. It's pretty awesome.
I love that.
But yeah, what else did I do? What else have I done? I've been working with a therapist who specializes in ADHD, which is awesome because we get to discuss, behavioral stuff and how we can change that and how we can sort of notice, where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are within my ADHD. So that's really interesting. And I'm trying to set up a routine at the moment in the morning that's going to best support those strengths and weaknesses long term. Because if I have I'm just starting at the start. So, because obviously before it was just a
Chaos.
plethora of chaos. Like, my therapist said to me recently, she says, "Oh, how are the medication's going?" And I said, "Oh, they were a bit up and down to begin with." But I said, "Yeah, well, it's kind of like my thoughts were at 65,000 a day, which sounds excessive, but that's where it felt like it was. And it's now at 250, that's a vast difference, So
That's drastic.
yeah, drastic. So I can feel like I can, I'm going to be able to getting these behavioral aspects implemented along with this and having that great support network around you. I am in the best place in my life I've ever known to know
That's
that I'm
amazing.
going to go through this and come out because every time you go through a mental health situation or whatever, I totally believe it. It's kind of like when you get a flu, right? And you get sick and then you overcome that flu. But
Yeah.
your immunity gets stronger, right?
There's like that great quote that's like, you're up on every bad thing that's ever happened to you. You've overcome everything. Nothing you
Yeah.
can't do because you've done everything. Every hard time in your life, you've passed it already.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's only one way and that's through, right? And it's how you, what tools you choose to put into your pack to go through as well, whether that be
Exactly.
medication, whether that be therapy, or whether that be diet, nutrition, and exercise, or all of it.
Is there something in particular that like you've implemented, like aside from like the medication therapy, that's really helped you, like something that you've learned?
I'm actually still in the process of implementing these things in place. So maybe ask me in 3 months that question. But I think at the moment, I think communication is really, really important and how you communicate to those people around you.
Like learning how to recommunicate, sort of.
Yes, yeah. Like I've just, so my diagnosis has been in the last 6 weeks. So I'm learning I'm speaking differently to how I was before about myself, and I'm speaking outwardly to those people around me, advocating for myself in a totally different way. And it's really been empowering in the sense that they're like, "Oh, okay, so that's why you do that, right? Okay," and then you can sort of accommodate the situation because you have the clear information about what's actually happening, and you're not just doing all this shit to be a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? It's just how you are. So I think at the moment, so my next step is that I'm just I'm telling people in my inner circle, okay, because I've got a lot of friends in America through Instagram, and they our time to chat is usually first thing. So I'm going to say, "Hey guys, like I've got this block, and this is what the block I'm going to be working on over the next month, and you can support me by not trying to call me because my big thing is distractions." So I'd be like, "Oh, cool. Ellie's calling me or Garett's calling me," and I'll just go, "Yeah, wicked. I love having chats with Ellie. I love having chats with Garett. I'm going to just sit here and talk for the next hour." And then,
I feel that.
if I don't have that structure in place, the therapist has actually just shared with me that, because we're going through the process of autism now to look at that, because I've done the first round and it's looking highly likely. So to understand that side of the brain and the ADHD side so that we can create a structure that works best for those
you.
developments. Yeah. So that's what I've learned so far, I think.
I think that's really important. Like you're still going through the process. I think that's an important, like, one, to document that for yourself, right? But two, like, I think somebody who hasn't even started the process can see that and hear that and know that, like, even though you're just in the beginning of the journey and everything's not solved and everything's never going to be solved properly, and that solve is a loose word. Just going through the process and learning different things about yourself and how you speak to yourself. One of the biggest things I've learned from just my business coach was give yourself grace.
Yes.
And I think that's such a powerful thing because, like, the way you talk to yourself, the way you see yourself, the way you interact with others and how you treat yourself to others is like a baseline. And I think that, like, when you do that, it helps so many others, like, see that, like, they're not alone.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And I also feel you on the distraction thing because that I have to put all my notifications off because if not, I will spend the whole day when I first came back to Instagram, that's kind of like funny because like I'd spend like half the day like just DMing people and just talking, like not like, hey, buy my products, but like actually
Yeah.
talking and having conversations and connecting with people. And I
Yeah.
love that. But then I
Yeah.
didn't get anything done either. And it kind of like stressed me out more and brought more anxiety because then I also felt like, oh shit, I got to keep this up now because otherwise people are going to think I'm slacking. And I'm
Yeah.
really grateful, like people, like as they see like my conversation die down a little, in terms of like, I can't be on Instagram all day talking to
Yeah.
people. I see that like they understand that and they appreciate that. And like something that like, okay, so for me, my mental struggle in the past few months is just the winter hit me hard. It hit me so
Yeah.
hard. Like as soon as that time zone change came in like November-ish, it kind of just like all my, I don't want to say motivation, but like I felt
Kind of
like,
sluggish, hey?
so sluggish, so like I didn't want to do anything, so like less of routine. My routine got thrown off and it took so long to find that balance back. And like, and it's funny because like business, on the business side of things have been great. And you would
Yeah.
think like that would uplift you and keep you to keep going. And it's just not how it works.
No, that's right. It's like your internal world can really externally it impacts your quality of work, or it can like well you feel like that's good but it's not good enough, or
Yeah, exactly.
because everything you create you put energy into, right? And if you feel like your energy's not there and you're creating, like say for example I'm creating a reel, I'm like, oh, it just doesn't, for me it's not got that total sparkle factor. And yeah, if you're feeling sluggish, and the seasonal what's it called, seasonal affection of what is that, SADS, it's SADS, but I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's
Oh, I have
yeah.
no idea. I just know that I
Okay,
get the winter blues so
that's
hard.
it. Yeah, basically it's the winter blues. Yeah, yeah, and it's 'cause when I lived in the UK, it was sort of, winter blues hit hard, man, because you're in the dark, like
Uh,
when it's cold and miserable and that. But yeah, I had to, as a Kiwi living there, I had to find ways to, because I realized that it was lack of sunshine. So I thought, right, what can I do? I can lift my chemicals in my brain by exercising. So I made sure that I was exercising throughout the winter months quite a lot. And if it was a sunny day, I'd get outside and soak it up, rugged all rugged up, and just getting outside in the sun. There's things that you can do, and it is a battle. It is a conscious effort to battle against that winter blues kind of energy.
mhm.
Like I noticed differences in because I've lived in the UK and I've worked out there, and I've also worked and lived in Australia. So I've had really different experiences in regards to mental health, and particularly in the workplace. So I haven't worked in cities out here in Australia, though, just going to say that, but I've worked in small locations. But I have worked in cities in the UK. And, like, for example, when I worked in Brighton, it was mental health within that community is spoken about really openly. Like, you can speak about mental health with someone you've literally just met. But also, I noticed the difference when, like, 'cause there's been times, you work in marketing, you're going to sign yourself off for stress at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think any client based, and not in a mean way, but like anything that where you're working with people who are paying for something, you're gonna have that range. I mean, you have great clients and you have those not so great clients, and I think
yeah,
it's just life.
yeah,
Definitely, though.
yeah, for sure. Like I can remember an example where I took a week out because I wasn't, I'd been feeling not great for a long time. I think it was probably over winter as well. And yeah, there was a lot of stress going on in my personal life at the time. So, and having a job that's, had a certain level of pressure about it. Like,
Yeah.
I think all of the things at once. And then probably because I was ADHD and I had no idea at the time, like I, didn't know how to process things, and stuff that I've just, learned recently that I now have a better understanding about. But like looking back, my boss was really great. They were understanding of it, and they just needed to know, when you would be likely to come back. Because obviously, as a manager, from a management point of view, you need to understand to manage your workloads. But they were really openly discussing it with you as to where you were at, as to how they could manage their team. And it didn't feel like they were like, yeah, okay, good. So when are you going to be back? Monday, right? Like, and it's a Friday. So the difference I felt with other places I've worked in here in Australia, for example, it was any sort of because I just lived in Brighton for 5 years, and I just thought everyone thought like everyone did there,
Yeah.
and went into a workplace and was really open because I figured I needed a once a week for 6 weeks kind of thing with a therapist. And, after that, because historically, if there's been something going on and I think, okay, I'll just go get a round of therapy and then, then I'm off and I'm through. I know that about myself, but other people don't.
Uh-huh.
So they're like, oh my, as soon as you mention the word therapy, they're like, oh no, she's not coping.
So that's how
But
it is in Australia, you're saying?
well,
Like it's
that was an experience that I had here. So I think it puts people into sort of a like, oh no, and I was the only person in marketing at the time, so it was like, okay, what? And for that manager, they were probably concerned about because there's no one to do what I can do on the
Mhm.
team. So it was probably freaked them out. But like I'm just, I'm really casual about it. I just thought, I'm just going to go and get,
Go on a little mental holiday and
yeah,
come
just
back fresh and bright.
I'm going to go to a therapist. And I said to them, I said, look, I could lie to you and say I'm going to physio, but I don't want to lie to you. So, but then there was also underlying things that came back where I felt like people was trying to sort of anxiously tiptoe around me, like, oh, don't, and I just thought, hang on a minute, I told you that in confidence. And no, I can't, there's no evidence that that person said anything to somebody else, but it may have been implied that I wasn't coping.
Maybe it'd be a little easier on Chrissy so she
Yeah,
don't disappear
yeah,
again.
yeah. But the reality is that I actually went to my boss to say, this is what I need. This is what I'm going to do because I don't want it to get to a level where it's affecting my work. Right.
You want to be able to you take pride in it. You want to be able to
Yeah.
perform at your highest level.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I wanted to do that for the team. So, so that was that experience. But I've also been in another role where it was used against me as a weakness, which was just, looking back, was pretty nasty. And it was a different time. It was 13 years ago. So it was a totally different time in a totally different world. So things have changed and improved in the workplace and around the topic of mental health. Like I think that there's still a lot of stigma creeping around, and I've recently experienced stigma again because I just go in naively because I'm so open about it that I just think the whole world is, and then
Yeah.
I get a reflection back, and I'm like, oh no, it's not okay.
Yeah, it's so wild because when you think like that, right? And you don't see problems with anything, you know what I mean? But like when you're so like trusting of people and your circle, and then you think like everybody's like that, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, never mind. Let me go back into my little bubble and hide.
And I won't speak about mental health because it's making you uncomfortable. So I'm just gonna go, okay.
I feel like here in the US, it's kind of like in between, right? Like some
Yeah,
people
okay.
are really great about it, and then
Hmm.
others are like you said, like they see it like, oh, well, that's a weakness. You can't
Yeah.
talk about that. You can't cry about this. You can't
Mm.
focus on the negatives. You just need to look positive, and that's it. And like I get that in a way. Like yeah, you need to train your mind to be more of on like the positive mindset.
Mhm.
But that's not going to fix everything for you. Like I said, everything could be great around you. Everything could be perfect. Your
That's
business could
right.
be going good. Your relationships could be going good. And that's how it was for me. You know what I mean? And then still, like something as simple as weather can bring up all those the grief that you've had and
Mm.
all of the other things that bother you. My anxiety just
Mhm.
triggered out of nowhere for nothing.
Yeah.
And people don't always see that. I think it's really great because, like we said, but like we've built amazing communities like that we're actually personal with. It's not just like some transactional relationship.
Mhm.
And so like people like reach out to me and then be like, "Hey, are you okay? I've seen you haven't posted in a few days.
Mhm.
Is everything good?" And then
Yeah.
actually have a real conversation
Yeah.
about, hey, this is what's been bothering me. And like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I understand completely." And we're always here to talk. We're always here if you want, to bounce something off of me. And I think that's really dope. But then there's like some people I think the problem is probably a hot take. I think the problem with it is that some people use like anxiety and ADHD and all that to their advantage. Whereas if maybe they don't struggle from that, they use it as an excuse so they don't have to do something or so
Yeah.
they can slack
Yeah.
off on something because the very few people who do that ruin it for the rest that actually
Yeah.
experience those
That are
problems.
that are really distressed by their situation. Yeah,
I think that it really does. It affects a lot of people's outlooks on it. You know what I mean? And people say, "Oh well, they're not really that anxious. They could just suck it up and do it."
that's the thing. It's really because you can't see it, right? You can't see it. You can't see the level of distress that that person's facing and suffering from mental health when everything's going great. It doesn't discriminate. Like it's like addiction. Mental health doesn't discriminate. Your whole life can appear like rainbows and candy floss to the outside world, and then they give you shit about it as if like, well, everything's great. What's your problem?
Exactly. Like I could say, like this is probably one of the most like put together times of my life. In
Hmm.
terms of like all the different aspects of my life are relatively going great, right?
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong. We all have things going on that are not great, but like, shit. Now I'm ruining it for myself because you have anxiety about your own anxiety and your own struggles, and it's like, damn. Now I'm ruining everything for myself because I can't do this today because I just don't have it in me, or where I'm at in level wise,
Yes.
and then you feel bad like, hey, maybe I shouldn't record, a few reels today. Maybe I shouldn't post that today. And it's funny because like I have like a bunch of social media content and videos like recorded and ready to publish,
Yeah.
but at the same time, sometimes it's like I don't have it in me to.
Do the engaging side.
And it's not like engaging is like I have to do it or this and that. It's like that's
Mm-mm.
what I love to do. That's what I love, how I love to
Yeah.
interact with my community. But if I'm
Yeah.
not feeling it in that sense, and I can't keep it consistent in the sense that like, I'm gonna post X amount of times a week, and not that you have to,
Hmm.
but it's just not there sometimes.
Well, that's a reality. Hey, I really, and there's one thing I've really advocate for is, this whole like post 5 times a week, do 3 reels, do this, do that. Like it's like I actually have a belief that when your energy's in the right place and it's in the right space, you're going to make the appropriate connection and it's going to have the appropriate impact, whether that's to one person or 20
Hmm.
people.
I completely agree.
Yeah, the whole posting X amount a week and having this pressure zone. That's why I said to myself, like, I thought when I was coming back, I could post 3 times a week. I think I lasted 2 weeks at that. And I thought, well, that's just not sustainable for me right now.
Uh-huh.
So and at the moment it's been twice a week. Sometimes it's not been because I think it's better to be checking in with yourself and realizing where you're at first and foremost, because that energy that you put in behind any of the interacting you do while you're online, I think in the DMs is different. In the DMs you can be, it's more deeper connections that happen in there. But when you're out, what I call the front facing, like on the comment section, it feels like there's a pressure to be a little bit more on in that space than it is
I
in the
totally agree.
DMs. Yeah, if your headspace isn't in the right place, you're not putting out your best, whether that be energetically or communication wise, or
No, I completely agree with you.
yeah, I find myself like if I'm making comments like yeah, cool,
I think that speaks more to our kind of philosophy around community, because like so many people would just be like, "Oh, thanks, thanks." Like that's how they would comment back, like, "Oh, thanks, thanks for your thoughts, thanks for this info, thanks for whatever." And I think that speaks to, because like, yeah, we feel on because we actually want to converse back to somebody who took the time to watch our videos or
that's it.
whatever.
Yeah,
And I think that's the part that people skip, like, because people are like, "Oh, well, just comment on it. It's no big deal, right?" But it is, because when you're putting that amount of love and energy into something, you can't just do it to do it. You have to do it because you want to do it. It's kind of like, like you ever see like a kid, a parent forces their kid to say sorry, right?
yeah,
But what does that really, like? I get that you're trying to train your kid to say sorry, but what does that mean if they're not actually feeling sorry about it? It's kind of like
yeah.
that same method to me. Like, if I just say thanks, where's the actual gratitude? Like, you took this time, like, you took a minute out of your day to watch and comment on my video,
That's
and
it.
all I'm going to give you back is a thanks. Like,
Yeah,
no, I want to like keep the going. I mean, there's not always conversation there, right? But trying to make
yeah.
it somewhat personal when you talk to somebody, it's more meaningful.
But that's the thing. I think it's you're someone who likes to create connection. So and if you're not in a space where you have that energy to be connective in the way that you are, then you're not going to go in there and half-ass it. Like you're
I
a
mean,
person who doesn't know how
exactly.
to half-ass it. Like, and we're obviously like both of us, I think, are big communicators, and when we communicate from the heart, really, like from the real side of ourselves. But yeah, I think that if you don't have that energy available to be 100% who you are, then
Hmm.
sometimes it's important for you to step back and do it on a day when your energy is there. Because the thing is, I was saying this to someone else the other day, I said socializing online is kind of like socializing in real life, but
Hmm.
you're doing it at a much faster speed. So you're still socializing, and I don't know about you, but like a certain amount of socializing wipes me out.
Draining. Yeah, definitely. I'm 100% introverted.
But yeah, as much as I love it, like, I need to withdraw and spend time, like quiet time doing quiet stuff. So
No, I completely agree. I think
yeah,
it's interesting you actually said that though, because like the internet gets a lot of shit, right? And I think
yeah,
that's something like that the internet gets the power up for because you take me like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I
mhm,
would never want to approach a network like the way I do on Instagram or
yeah,
Twitter, right? My anxiety, my social anxiety like that is just never been there. Like I don't know why.
yeah,
It's just that's just who I am, right? And but the thing
yeah,
is like I love the whole aspect of building community and having like people that like, people that rely on you for certain information and that you can talk to and help and
yeah,
making like a real impact. And it's funny because like a few years ago, it just wouldn't have happened that way. Like, so it's kind of crazy how like the internet actually brings people together in that aspect.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. I've also got this theory that I think that people who are neurodiverse or have struggles internally, I think the internet and being able to communicate digitally does
We
help.
could turn it on and off as we get the energy rather than like
Yeah.
if you went to like a networking event, right? Let's say we go to like a
Oh
conference
yeah. Yeah.
and when you get there, hey, you might be high up there. And then like an hour later, you're like, oh, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I can't and I've been there, I've done the conference thing too. That so like from that aspect I could say like, oh, I want to go home. I don't want to do this. Let me
Yeah.
go to my hotel room and just watch TV the rest of the day or
Yeah. I've walked into a corporate networking event before, and it was before I'd sort of stepped back into the corporate role, and I just got back into the country, and a really good friend of mine actually took me to it, and I had bright red hair, and then my social anxiety overwhelmed me so much because people weren't. I think I don't know if it was my height and my hair that I appeared unapproachable. I've got no idea, but anytime I tried to talk or anything, it wasn't happening, and then I became more socially awkward. The whole thing just escalated. It was horrendous, and I was like, I just wanted the whole thing over. It was the most painful hour and a half of my life, and I'm like, those kind of places that just don't work for me. And then, oh, here's my business card. Like, it feels so robotic.
it definitely does.
Within a creative space like Instagram, you can actually, I get to expose like the extrovert side of me. I get to share the emotional side of me and all the rest of it. So whenever I've ever made a connection online and I've actually met them in real life, that social anxiety's gone. It's not there
Mhm. Yeah, cuz you already know them and everything, right?
because we know each other, and you get to know each other on a really deep level. And I think also connection can happen far more quickly and deeply via the internet, perhaps because
You don't have those roadblocks in front of you.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's definitely been a space for me that has supported my mental health and where my energy levels are at. But I can also see very, very clearly the absolute flip side of that coin, and how um, if you don't have strong boundaries set with yourself and you don't have a strong relationship with yourself where you can actually be honest and ask yourself, like, am I just scrolling? Am I on here
Mm.
scrolling, and I'm starting to feel worse and worse because everyone else is doing better than me?
That's a good point.
There's people I started out with in the social media space, 2 years ago, that have far exceeded and excelled where I am from, on paper, where you're looking at that. But the thing is, I have to stop and remind myself is like, there's been humongous things that I've been going through in my personal life while I've been trying to build my business. So, but
Yeah.
having that conscious thought of like, I followed everyone when I started. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And then I just
Mhm.
felt bombarded by what I should and shouldn't be doing. And then
Mhm.
and I thought, I've got to unfollow a load of these people.
I 100% get that feeling.
And then what happened was, things that happened in my life that had massive impact, like the loss of my father, and that those rule books just went out the freaking window. Like everything was off the table. When something comes in that's that impactful,
Mhm.
it's. But during the process of it all, I communicated with people in my audience via my DMs. I had so many people in my audience that were checking in on me. So I honestly think that had I not had that audience, that process for me that I went through would have been 10 times harder, because the connections I've made there and within that space are so supportive and so real. And, I've got people that I love all over the world and that love me. And there's the potential for that through an app is just, you know, I've just got goosebumps thinking about
It's kind of crazy because it's
that.
like there's people that you've met online that have better intentions and wishes for you than people you might know in real
Yeah,
life. And that's sad to
yeah,
say, but it's so true.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
feel it like authentically. You can feel that like that
yeah,
genuine connection. Like I have a few people who I talk to not daily, but every few days,
yeah,
just check in like you.
yeah,
And it's like you feel that love. Just like somebody saying, "Hey, how are you doing? I hope your week's going well." Like you feel that genuine
yeah,
connection with somebody,
yeah,
and it's great because like you have family members or friends who you don't talk to for like 2-3 months or 4 months until like
yeah,
a holiday, or they might need something from you, so like, hey, how are you doing, kind of thing,
yeah,
and then you have people
yeah,
like that you meet on an app, like you said, just an app, and they're like have genuine intentions for you, and it's
yeah,
amazing to see. To be honest, it's so great.
yeah. The potential for it enriching your life is massive, and that's what I tell people I coach. I'm like, you know, don't just think the links, the connections you make on here are just all revenue based and all that sort of stuff. Like I said, there's so much opportunity out there for your business to be seen.
Hmm.
There's things outside of making money that are going to enrich your life. And therefore, if your life's more enriched and you're in a bit, you're in a good space and you're firing forward and you've got all of that support and all that richness around you, then it sets you up to the best position to
I
succeed in what you're
completely.
aiming at, right?
Something that you said though, about like when you were following so many people and it overwhelmed you because like they were in a certain position. I 100% relate to that. I had that whole breakdown. I was off Instagram and social media
Yeah,
period for like 2 years. Was like that was kind of part of it. Like I had a photography account at the time. I shared all my photography because I never really used social media for my business before I came, like in the last few years. So like I used my social media for photography and fun stuff, hobbies. And I'd get that same overwhelm, like I should be doing this right now. I should be on video. I should be making these carousels and these posts. It made me feel like a fraud. And I'm like, oh, I guess maybe I'm not really, the big deal I thought I was. Even though like I'm still helping people and I still have, business going well and everything. It's just like, oh, okay. I guess
yeah.
maybe I should give it up and go do something different because, I'm not with 100,000 followers or something like that.
That word should, I've recently discovered, I think, and I've looked over the last 2 years and that whole word should and going, I should be shinier, I should be more polished, I should be this or I should be that, or, I should be posting as way more than I am.
Hmm.
I really realized how toxic that word is to us as small
It really
business owners.
is.
It's such a big word, and I've been finding myself like going, oh, well, I should do, and I'm now more consciously aware of that word should. I'm like, okay, should, and what you can do today, or,
That's a really, really great point. That's such a great point.
and I like, that's another t-shirt I want to get made, actually. Should.
You definitely should. But you're so right. And even like knowing that and knowing that like your energy levels, you still feel like I still feel that like I haven't really consistently posted in the last few months on social media at all. And that's because, I've been trying to mentally prepare to like come up with a new content plan so I can be more consistent and more authentic and more real. And I like guilt myself like, oh damn, I didn't post anything today. Even though like I know like the plan is not to do it. It's like I
Yeah.
should do it anyway. Or
Yeah.
maybe I should just post this quick like image for a story. Or maybe I should do this because, you know, X, Y, and Z said to do this. It's like peer pressure, like, but like
Yeah.
business wise.
I'm feeling that pressure right now because a lot of my stuff's been relevant to what's going on, and I'm like, but I'm not really helping people from an Instagram coaching perspective, and I'm feeling massive amounts of guilt for that. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, what's happening has been so impactful, and my experience that I've been living has been impacting me and the people in my life. And I've seen gaps in the system through the process, and
Mm-hmm.
I just want to share a very real perspective of what's been happening, because it's kind of like, for example, out here, what I experienced is kind of like, okay, tick your ADHD. Here's a prescription. I'll see you in a month. Hope it all goes
Get on
well.
with your life now. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had to really ask the questions. So, what are my next steps? So, what do I need to do? What groups can I go to? And do you know any ADHD therapists? All that stuff I had to find out myself.
So basically you're shifting a lot of your content towards that to make a bigger impact for your community more than the social media part.
Yeah, I'm sort of like very on the line. I feel like, yeah, I'm definitely, mental health's always been a thing within my content, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've suffered social media burnout in a previous job role, so I'm very aware of what that's like. And I just thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this in a way that's healthy and that's going to support me. So,
And I think that's healthy because if you're just like a machine posting 3 times a week, every week, the whole time, I know that's like the best practice, right?
yeah, of
That's what
course.
everybody
Yeah.
wants you to do. But I think that's so robotic. It's not
Hmm.
human. And I think people realize that, are starting to realize that and recognize that like we don't all have like a Gary V team where we can just keep going and going and going and going, document our whole life and keep going and going and going, post on social media this and that and that. It just doesn't work that way anymore. And I think we're at that cusp of
Hmm.
like there's so much noise out there
Yeah.
that people are really going to start to turn towards that
Yep.
quality over quantity
I
aspect of
agree.
it.
I feel like that's happening. I definitely feel like that's happening. I'm through communicating with you. I know that you're not posting as much as you were, or whatever. You're taking a bit of a back seat. But the fact is, you're doing so much other stuff in the background away from social media that is needed for you to do to create like long-term success in your business. So you're doing all of this other work, like,
Yeah.
like putting this podcast together and getting a structure in place and how it's all going to work. And
It's not only what you see on the front, you know, the
oh yeah,
storefront, it's like what you see behind the
oh
curtains.
yeah, for sure. Like the coordination of all this that's involved. This is just one thing, right? So
Yeah.
I'm aware that you have other stuff that you're doing. So
And then on top of all that, there's still client work that has to be done properly at a high
classic,
level for your business to keep going on successfully.
because you got to pay your bills, right?
I think
So
that's the part that people always skip out on too. Like they always think like, oh, well, just post on social media 5 times a day, 6 times a day, 7 times a day. Who cares? Just keep doing it. You're gonna get more clients. Okay, but now what about when I got those clients? What am I supposed to do?
yeah, because you're one person, right? So you have to learn to prioritize really well when you're a small business owner, and you have to work out where your energy is going to best serve you, because social media is energy in a big way, right? So then,
Yeah.
for more than one reason, like just because it's either the creation process, and it's the thinking process, and creating that content, and then loading that content, and then having the conversations with people online. That's a job in itself, right? That's a full
Yeah.
job.
Totally. Totally. Full-time job.
Yeah, yeah. Hence why there's social media managers, right?
I know you're at that cusp, right? Of like the social media thing and mental health awareness thing,
Mhm.
and you're not sure which direction to really go in. And I
Yeah.
think that something that could be really cool is actually focusing your talent of social media and put
Hmm.
that towards mental health organizations,
Yeah.
therapists, helping other people, you know, prevent burnout. And I think like that could
Yeah.
be like the potential shift for you because like it's something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
You know, it's something you're skilled in and it's something
Yeah.
that you're also learning while you go. And I think
Yeah.
that is a big opportunity for you because I don't see too many people doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I think that could be your like niche that you're going towards.
I definitely feel like it's a thing and it's a calling. I think, these things happen in life, right, to set you up for the next part of life that you don't know is coming. So because all you're doing is leveling up each time. It's kind of like that get the flu, your immunity builds up. You have an anxiety disorder, you work through it with support and all the rest of it, whatever you need at that time, and then you're up again because the next time you experience anxiety, you know exactly what you're doing. You know your flags that pop up, and you know what you need to do in your life to help ease it. So mental health is never ever a weakness. It's not in my eyes. You learn and you grow, right? And you learn and grow in ways that strengthen you, in ways that ultimately help you in life in general, but it also helps you. It helps you in business. You become more empathetic. You're more able to read a room. You can feel when things are off.
I think it's more of a superpower, if anything, right?
Yeah.
People like always have like pointed out, like, I'm very intricate about certain things, right? Things have to be a specific way. Some people call that OCD. Some people call that, something else. But for me, that I think I've used that as my superpower in the sense of like attention to detail, like in the design space, at least, right? Things that people don't normally see that actually feel something else. Something looks too squished, and it makes people who view it, it gives them anxiety looking at it. It makes them feel cluttered and closed in and confined. Knowing certain things like that and seeing the obsessiveness of wanting to make sure everything's airy and looking, and you want people to feel that through your design. Like for me, I feel like that part of my mental state has helped me become a better designer.
For sure, it would. Absolutely, it makes it everything. It makes it absolutely perfect for what you do. Yeah, I think that it helps you with things like perception, doesn't it? Like I can imagine if you're talking to a client, the right questions to ask to draw out what you need to evoke that feeling for their brand.
I like that you mentioned it because it's like I've been on calls where people are like, oh, I've never been asked that.
Yeah.
If you Google like, a questionnaire for, a website or a questionnaire for a logo, and then like I'll come to somebody and I'll be like, well, okay, screw the archetypes. How do you actually like want your client to feel when you're done with them? How do you want them to feel about working with you? How do you want them to feel when they first understand about you beyond, oh, well, I can do my business great? Like it definitely does help you. Like, I'm very analytical. Like I make a lot of comparisons, and I think that's kind of part of that. Cause like people don't normally think that way. Like I compared like leads to Pokemon, and that's like one of my biggest like videos that I did. And people were like, how did you even think of it? And I'm like, how did you not think about that?
Yeah, I always love your stories, like your analogies that you use within your content, because it's a great way and it's a great spin to deliver the message. But brand runs so deep, and that's why I think I was drawn to you. I actually listened to a podcast on you. Was it Digital Bosses or just with Joseph?
It's Digital Bosses, yeah.
Yeah, so I listened to that and I thought, this guy gets brand. Like, this is the kind of language. I gave you an immediate follow because I just knew that you thought about brand in a way that I thought about brand. And I don't know how to think about, like, when my clients come to me, I don't know how to think about them from anything else but a brand perspective. So I ask questions and they're like, I've just got this to sell, so I don't get it. Why do I need to know this shit?
Yeah.
I need the stuff to be able to create.
My favorite's when someone's like, oh, well, I love Mercedes. Can we just do like what Mercedes does? And I'm like, no, we can't. Mercedes sells high-end cars, and you don't. I think you're in a different class of what people want from you. You're not going to provide the same type of experience. You're not looking to, you're not that luxurious automobile to help put you in a different status symbol. You're trying to build a business. I think it's a little different in this sense.
Yeah.
Something that's really like cool and kind of highlights the type of person you are. When I asked you doing this podcast, is there something coming up that you want to really promote? And you told me, no, I don't really want to promote any offers or anything like that. What I want to do is I'm going to sell a t-shirt and I want to donate the proceeds of that to charity. And I thought that was like really special and cool because like you have this platform here, and instead of like going to sell something for yourself, you want to impact, the people in your community, people who are going through the same struggles. I would really like, if you can tell people how they can get into that and help support that.
Okay, so right now I'm sort of in the design phase. I've actually, it's back to front, but this is something that I was saying on the regular. Like my partner would ask me, at the end of the day, oh, how's your day gone? And I said I'm doing everything else and not the things I should be doing. So I'm just running around ADHDing my head off. So that's where that came about. And I've just put together a mock-up at the moment, but I've also got some other ones that are going to be mental health based. I contacted 3 different foundations here in Australia, and every single one of them took nearly 4 weeks to get back to me. And I chased
Wow.
them and all that sort of stuff. So I know that there's an absolute strain there.
Where can people find, like, keep in tune with us?
Over on my Instagram channel, at Red Punk Social, I'll be sharing all information on that. And as soon as I have updates, I want to get a supplier as well. I also want to find someone that can obviously post worldwide, so that may be an issue. But it's definitely 100% something that I am doing, and it's important for me to want to do that, just because some people have had smooth sailing experiences. I didn't, so I want people to know the reality of that.
Yeah, totally. Life is not always all sunshines and roses like we'd like. But I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today and being on the first episode.
Yeah, I was so excited to be here, and particularly because it's on this subject, which is such a meaningful one for me to be invited on.
And I thank you because it's a hard thing to talk about sometimes, being so open and vulnerable. And I'm really proud of you for like sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm happy to share, like, with anyone in my audience or anyone who reaches out to me.
I love that so much, like that you're always open. You always have an open door to help impact somebody else and help somebody else get through even the littlest or biggest things in their life. So just thank you for being you.
Yeah, I just don't believe there should be any shame surrounding mental health, and choose to lead with sharing openly and being really transparent about it all, because it helps to open up the discussion. And I think if I'm one person and I'm being really honest and open about being in the social media space, and if I'm wanting to help raise awareness for mental health, if I'm not talking about my own experience that I'm currently going through, then I'm not being real.
Yeah.
So thanks for giving me the space and allowing me to come forward and speak about it and share about it.
I think of a really big thanks to Chrissy for doing this episode. I know how hard it is to be so vulnerable and deep in a platform like this. And thank you for listening to the first episode. Make sure you check the show notes where I'll share everything that we talked about in today's episode, including how you could support some great mental health organizations. I'll catch you in the next episode, and remember, brand intentionally.